big swings.
Well, here it comes. Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow! In your life have you seen anything like that?
Big moments.
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer.
All the news, all the views.
The career Grand Slam belongs to Corey Webb.
Welcome to the PGA Golf Club.
And welcome to the final edition of this series of the PGA Golf Club. Adam White, Brendon Goddard, Dale Lynch and Craig Spence joining you for this edition. We thought being the last of this series, we'd have Craig in for the entire show. So as I welcome everyone in, Brendon, firstly, welcome.
Hello, mate.
How are you?
Great.
That's good.
Very good.
That's good. Dale Lynch, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
And Craig Spence, welcome off the top. This is very exciting.
Is this kind of an upgrade? Is this
no doubt about that.
promotion?
I think it has to
in
be.
some way?
I think it has to be.
We didn't have a choice when you got in early.
That's right.
I've been hinting for a while.
That's right. That's right. Well, there's so much to talk about, so I thought we would get you in off the top because we've obviously just had the President's Cup. Coming up on the show, we've got Wade Ormsby, who's going to be our feature guest, getting ready for the PGA up at the RACV Royal Pines Resort this week. And we're also going to catch up with Jack Wilson, who's going to do something a bit different at the halfway point of the tournament. So that's to come. But the President's Cup, let's get straight into it. What was your initial or your overall thoughts of the whole week, I guess? I'll start with you, Craig, because I know you were there for most of the week.
I'll probably steal the other guy's thunder a bit, but I think Royal Melbourne was the champion of the week. The tournament had everything, didn't it? It had the whole Patrick Reed saga.
Mm-hmm.
It had Tiger Woods, playing his butt off. It had the internationals leading, which was fantastic, and really not just ahead, had an opportunity really to, wouldn't say seal it, but opportunity to give themselves a very, very high percentage chance other than that last foursomes series. So what we saw, I think, was a magnificent piece of golfing architecture that gets lost in this country. People think it's a little bit better. It's actually miles better than anything else we've got in this country. There's a gap the size of the Pacific Ocean between it and number two, I think. And it played that way this week in terms of you had to have spin control, you had to have trajectory control. It still made the guys... I mean, I saw pars winning holes at times out there for... How old's Royal Melbourne now? 120 years old, maybe 100, maybe a bit over 100 years old. It was just an absolute pleasure. I got to go out there for 2 days, and I thought it was one of the best golf events I've ever been.
And the wind didn't get up, and the greens weren't overly hard, but it was still a golf course that had its own defences.
It was. I mean, I saw... I think it's hole 7, which is the long, slightly dogleg left. They're hitting these knuckleball long irons, trying to run it in. Then I saw holes like 1 East, which I think is 11. They're hitting spin shots over bunkers and needing to rip it back to the hole. And when the wind allowed, and then you see them having to hit hold-up fades, hold-up draws, and that's going to be something I focus on later, actually. I won't talk about that. But it was just remarkable how much this golf course required angles and spin control from the best players in the world.
Dale Lynch, what was your highlights and takeouts? Because you were also down there.
Yeah, I was the same as Craig. I thought the genius of Royal Melbourne was a standout for me. As Craig said, it's great to see the ball spend some time on the ground, and because the player, they just have to be able to control the spin to be able to get the ball because it's either working toward the flag or working away from the flag. So, yeah, Royal Melbourne was an absolute standout. And because in reality, it's too short, really. But the genius of the greens, right? The genius of the greens, the bunkering says, well, okay, maybe it is a little short, but the short holes are the same, aren't they? I mean,
they are.
The short holes, the equipment hasn't changed the short holes. It's changed the par fives, but the great short par fours, the equipment has not changed those, right? And again, the PGA Tour on the course, you rarely see a great short par 4. You've probably got the 10th at Riviera is probably one that
Yeah.
comes to mind. And the equipment has not changed that hole either.
Can I butt in there?
Yeah.
Because I had a mate ask me, why is Royal Melbourne, and when you consider that it's, number one, the routing of the golf course, the way the holes lay is perfect almost, right? Then you've got the strategy, like where all the bunkers are placed is almost in perfection, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
then you've got the quality of the turf, the bounciness. Like you mentioned Riviera, they don't have the turf,
No,
right?
absolutely not.
That is a great short par 4, but it is less. Royal Melbourne's superior to that because of the quality of the turf, the bounciness, the way you have to use spin or take spin away from the ball. And all those are really, really important things. So it's not just, Royal Melbourne's the best because it's got the prettiest fairways. It is actually best for really significant reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just thrown that one at, I mean,
Yeah.
the 10th Riviera is not going to fit in Royal Melbourne
No,
any
no.
way, shape, form, replacing any hole. But just the great short holes, how genius they are. So that to me, I parked myself on 11 all day on Sunday just to watch how they would play that hole, and was just great to see. Just the probably sometimes, and it'd be really interesting to you talk strategy. That's one way you could talk strategy. For me, stand that Tiger Woods was the only person actually laid up off the tee, and everyone else hit driver, and probably more than half finished left, which was dead.
Yeah.
And the right-hand bunker's no joy either,
No.
with that slope coming back towards the bunker. So it was a bit like Tiger lays up, he's like a stress-free birdie, and everyone else is trying to drive it on the ground. They can't, and they've got all sorts of shots. Some of the guys, I watched some of the Asian guys there, and they'd be like 5 paces off the green, scratching their head, just up the green, and trying to work out how they're going to hit this thing close. So, yeah, the genius of Royal Melbourne. And I think, too, that the event, I like the atmosphere of the event, because it's probably the only event where every shot counts. Like the crowd gets involved in every shot, like an iron to a green or a putt that misses or a putt that goes in. There's a reaction from the crowd. So I thought that for me was true, and great for Australian golf, obviously, which we'll probably get another bit more detail on that sort of topic. But yeah, that for me for sure.
BJ?
Quickly, I don't need to repeat everything else, but I think just kind of the city of Melbourne itself and golf in general, being at Peninsula and Cathedral and seeing people recognising golf in Melbourne and what it is, and the Sandbelt's now in Royal Melbourne, thanks to Royal Melbourne, but the Sandbelt's kind of been put on the map again as such.
Yep.
It's not as if it wasn't, but
We don't play golf tournaments on there anymore.
yeah. Well, I saw your
So
tweet.
it's not
I saw
on
your
there.
tweet. Well, it's
This
not.
is going
But
to get messy.
there are people that are trying to
I'm looking for this next
Yeah.
topic.
push that. Yeah. So we don't get too political here on PGA Golf Club, but I think Whitey's going to take this in the direction
Yes, he
where it will. But it is. It's everyone's talking about the Sandbelt now. They're talking about Royal Melbourne. They're talking about Victoria and the changes there that OCCNM did at that time. Now OCMM. And my home club Peninsula. Like I'm chuffed that people now get to see Peninsula for what it is, and now be in this discussion of best in Australia. And yeah, I agree with Spence here, and the Royal Melbourne's kind of in a league of its own, but Peninsula has to be and will be in the same conversation as Kingston Heath and what's the second best golf course in Australia behind Royal Melbourne. And then people talk about Vic and visitors come up to Cathedral during the week, but it's like golf in Melbourne is really special. And the city of Melbourne's really special, but that's kind of my take at an overall thing, because I consistently see the tweets and the social media, and we all know how strong and influential that is now, but all the visitors that come here and then have now got to experience it. And yes, we had to have a President's Cup again for them to come down, because everyone, Australia's too far away, and geez, but when I get here, oh my God, how good is it? And I didn't really understand that too until I started travelling, playing golf in America, and I always thought that golf was better elsewhere. The grass was greener, but then because I've done so much travelling, and yes, I haven't done a heap in Europe, in Ireland, Scotland, but I come back and say we do have the best golf in the world.
Yeah, we'll get back to that conversation in a moment, but because there's a bit to discuss about that. My highlight for me, apart from everything that's been mentioned, was I was kind of surprised how much it actually meant to the Americans and how much it meant to Tiger. And I know that the Tiger thing was bigger than just the President's Cup in a lot of ways, because this was an opportunity for him to lead a team, the history-making, playing and being captain and all those sorts of things. But to see the emotion from him and some of the other Americans, I think was like, whoa, this actually isn't an exhibition event, which I felt going in. It was a bit exhibition-y for me. And then even the internationals, which is a sort of a group of people that are kind of thrown together from around the world, Ernie Els was able to create a very, very strong team dynamic that meant that it meant a lot to them as well, because we only had 3 Australians out there in our home President's Cup. But to see the Asian players and the South African all come together, and it really meant a lot to them, I think it gave an extra edge to it that I didn't think it necessarily had, which is, to me, what it doesn't have that the Ryder Cup has. The Ryder Cup is my favourite sporting event every second year. Yep. But to see the President's Cup, it will never be the Ryder Cup, but I think it had a bit more meaning than what I thought. So that was what stood out to me.
I completely agree. And there was a moment there where Tiger put his hands on his head, and it was as if he'd won a major.
Yeah.
And I think being the captain, it was really important to him. So I loved that. I completely agree with you. So coming back to the President's Cup, I had some thoughts about... Before the event this week, I agree, I thought it was a bit of an exhibition. At the end of the week, I thought, how long have China had in world golf now? They've maybe had 10, maybe 15 years of really serious world golf, right? Mm-hmm. You got the South Koreans continuing to get better and better. I think that when the Chinese really give them another 15 years of progression in the game of golf, we might start to see that superpower of Asia, along with the natural coaching and hopefully development of Australian golfers coming through again, which could be a subject too. And we may see a bit of a superpower start to emerge here in 10 to 15 years, and that if we start beating the Americans more often, then it's just going to grow, because they're not going to like that at all.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And play it on great sites. That could be a difference. Let the Ryder Cup have the Belfry, right? But we play it at our greatest venues, and that would make a huge difference.
Well, that's one of the things that sticks out in the wash-up of yesterday is Tiger saying, he goes, it's a shame we don't play major golf tournaments on golf courses of this significance.
All right. Okay, I don't want to go there just yet. Well, I don't want to quite go to the segue yet. Let's hear from Tiger talking about how important it was and how big it was to win that event.
We did it together. We came here as a team. My teammates and my boys all played well. The captains did an amazing job of just being there for every little detail. I couldn't have done it without all their help, and all my boys. They did it. It's been one of the more amazing challenges, but Strix and Cups and Zach, I mean, they were amazing, and all the guys, they believed in one another. We relied on one another as a team, and we did it together.
Okay, so that's Tiger Woods' view. Now, Ernie Els, who I think really captured the imagination of a lot of people here, and it really hurt him, the fact that they couldn't get over the line when they got so close.
Here we are. We lost 16-14, and, we got to swallow that. But great strides was made, especially in our team play. I really felt that our team play was really the core of our team, and that never was. We never, felt like we could play foursomes or four-ball together as a team. So we did that well. Before the week started, we had a plan to get to 10 points by Saturday evening. So that's why we were so excited yesterday, losing 3-1. Because we knew we got to 10 points. And I could have made different choices in the singles today. I can take it on my shoulders. It is what it is. The questions will come from you guys and from the public that, made mistakes in the selection of where I put my players. But I followed a plan 100%, and it didn't quite work out, but we came damn close.
And the other talking point was Cameron Smith's performance, potentially the making of him. I know he's gone close to winning a major, and he's a two-time winner of the PGA, which we'll get to shortly, but to be able to take down Justin Thomas when at the time it was at a really crucial juncture in the whole contest was I think one of the highlights of his life, and he talked about that after the event.
It was obviously a good win for myself today. So much emotion in the match, emotion after the match as well. I don't think I've ever been so excited and then kind of really gutted in the space of a few minutes. So, for myself, lots of confidence to take from the week. I felt as though I played good, but, we're here for one goal, and it kind of stings not to get it.
So that's a bit of a snapshot of the President's Cup. Before we get on and do a little mini preview for the PGA this week, because we continue the sort of the real epicenter of our golf season. Why don't we have a bigger event here in Melbourne? Now, I say Melbourne, this is a national show, but the Sandbelt is the thing that gets the international professionals interested. Mm-hmm. They all talk about it, and it kind of frustrates me that they all talk about how good it is, yet we have a situation where we don't have a regular event on the Sandbelt to use as a starting point to get people here on a regular basis. Is this going to change, or is this something that's just going to tease us?
Well, it's teased us for a long time. I think that if we want to have a great event here on the Sandbelt, we need to have the greatest players come out. That means we need not just one. If you're going to have one, it has to be a Tiger Woods. He's running out of time now to some degree, right? He's only got... I took my son out yesterday. And my daughter didn't want to. She's nearly 16. I'm not sure golf's her scene. But I wanted him to see Tiger Woods for the last time, potentially.
Lucky you took him on Sunday, not Saturday.
Yeah, true. Anyway, I think we need the greatest players to be here, and plenty of them. And I know if they come, I know that the crowds will be huge, right? They always have been when we have the great players here. How do we get the great players here? We need enormous investment, whether that's government investment, whether it's commercial investment from some of the big banks.
Daniel Andrews is
right?
in. You don't have to worry about Daniel.
All right, well,
it's everyone else.
So is it the golf bodies need to align and get together? I don't know. That's been whispered. I actually don't know the answer to that.
I don't think anyone knows the answer, because it's not like people haven't been trying. But Thomas Bjorn sent this tweet out. Now, I think when Thomas Bjorn talks, we've got to listen. I mean, he is the Ryder Cup winning captain at the moment, and he's someone that is so well respected for his thoughts on golf, not just the way he plays. He wrote this. He wrote, "Watching the golf from Royal Melbourne makes me think that a run of events sanctioned between the PGA of Australia, the European Tour and the PGA Tour in December would be a great opportunity. All tours would win, and so would the fans. Aussie Open should be a bigger event than it is." That's pretty strong words from someone that is so revered in his thoughts on golf and his just stature in the game.
Yeah, your challenge with that, of course, is PGA Tour they tend not to want to play ball with anyone else. It's
no, well,
they
that's
want
right.
to control.
And the reality is it was their event in a way, wasn't it?
It absolutely is their event, and that's the only reason we've got those players there. But look, golf is just struggling we're struggling. Talk about the commercial.
That's what I was going to say. It's. I know I agree with you. They don't want to play ball for anyone else, but it's in their best interest to help develop the game, which they do. But work with other tours around the world to help grow the game, particularly universally and nationally in Australia as well. So I'll just saying, you think it's in their best interest, and they would do it based on what I just said about growing the game, both universally and nationally. It just doesn't make sense that they don't want to kind of work with the PGA Tour and Golf Australia to get another great event here and continue to grow the game and help salvage the game in a way here in Melbourne and in Australia.
Be nice to think that. I don't know, and again, very much outside looking in, but it seems to me that they're more about controlling areas, than they are about actually the development of the game. It's sort of like controlling, Canada, controlling China, controlling Latin America. We're such a small pond, aren't we? Really, and just the commercial. I mean, golf has lost so many sponsors. I look at it over the journey. I mean, the Australian Open, for example, it's worth less money now than when Jeff first played in it, right? That's
crazy.
And you think of that, and we were sort of discussing off air before that golf's the only game where you can actually play. You can actually play the Pro-Am on the Wednesday with the golfers, and you can actually stand there as close as we're in this studio. You can be that close to Tiger Woods this week.
Yeah.
It's the only sport you get the opportunity of doing it. It has so much going for it, and I can't understand why. I can't understand why we've struggled. And I'm sure that people have interviewed sponsors that we've lost, but I just find that staggering that we've lost all those sponsors. I mean, the AFL now they're the juggernaut, aren't they? They've taken all the sponsorship from other sports are pouring at AFL, and you can't blame them because of how well it's covered. And maybe that's the reason, but that's the part for me that I find really frustrating.
So you think now is an important time, and I brought this up a while back about, I think Golf Australia and all bodies in golf fell asleep at the wheel years ago when they started to lose the tournaments, and China started to come into the frame and steal kind of the scheduling and the dates from Australia. But now it's time to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, well, look, we've had President's Cup here before. And my sense is that, and we've been sort of lucky to be involved in golf for a long time, but golf in Australia just rode Greg Norman's back and rode Greg Norman's career. So the better Greg Norman got, the bigger golf got. Mm-hmm. And when Greg was at his peak, golf in this country was like off the charts. Every kid wanted to play. Every kid wanted to emulate Greg Norman, right? And then as Greg Norman's career started to unwind and wane, then golf in Australia actually just kept following until the point was when Greg's no longer playing, then we struggle for sponsors. We've got the Australian Opens in Sydney because the state government up there are basically part funding the tournament. We've got the Vic Open, which is now a big tournament, but that's part funded by the state government.
Mostly funded.
Mostly funded. So that for me is and I think when you say fell asleep at the wheel, I think they fell asleep at the wheel when golf was actually at its peak by not promoting other areas of golf. I mean, if you go, Craig would know this too, like PGA Tour in the US, when Tiger's number one in the world, the PGA Tour never used Tiger Woods in any of their promotions. They're always promoting these guys are good and always promoting other players because they know that Tiger will promote himself. So they keep making sure that other players are promoted behind him. And I don't think that golf in this country did the same thing. When Greg was at his top, we just kept, following his coattails.
It was all about Greg, yeah.
It was all about Greg, Yeah. So I think we dropped the ball then. Are we going to get much momentum from this? I think it will for a very short time. We had when Tiger came out playing... When he came out and played the Masters, right? That Monday after that Masters, every public golf course in Melbourne was booked out.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what drives the sport, no question. How do we capture it? How long does it last?
I suppose the thing I'd say about that, Lynchy, is the positives for us are we have a sports crazy nation that loves golf. I think a lot of people make jokes it's an old man sport, but reality is you see it at Yarraband, I see it at Albert Park Driving Range. A lot of young guys having a Corona or a Carlton Draft, hitting a few balls. There's a lot of young people that play on the weekends on the public courses. A lot of sports people, BJ, play golf. It's part of our fabric. It doesn't sit quite as high as footy and cricket, but it's right there underneath as a fabric. So if we also combine that with the great golf courses that we are starting to promote, starting to get the awareness out there that we really do have this. Now all we need is the right people in charge of promoting or getting the event up and running. If we could ever do that, I think the people would come. I think it's there.
Oh, there's no question.
The fabric's there.
But the other thing is that the promotion is the very thing, and we rely on the press, don't we? Right? And again, through the journey is that you go an Open Championship, you would have representation from every major news outlet in Australia, right? So there'd be 16, 20 journos there who would be interviewing players, and they'd be on the road at those major events, and they get to know players, and so therefore they can come home, they can write pieces personally because they actually know what goes on. Whereas now you go to those events, there might be one or two, and AAP are driving it, they're writing the articles come back, and all the news. So we've lost the connection between the journos, the sports journos, and the players for the most part. We don't have feature golf writers now, really, in a lot of the major papers. And I was at the Australian Open last week. Right? We were on the driving range, and there's a kid that was caddying for Ryan who's an absolute golf tragic. I mean, everything. He's into golf architecture. He loves it, and he just loves the game. And I said, there's a guy standing on the range here. I said, right here, right next to you. I said, he's won a really big tournament in the world. Do you know what it is? He looked, he said, can you give me a clue what tour? He said, does that be too much of a hint? And I said, well, it's the biggest tour. He said, And I said, well, what if I said it's almost probably the biggest event? And it was Mike Weir. And the interesting thing is that going back in the day, if Mike Weir has won a green jacket and has a great story, like he's fallen off the cliff and then trying to work his way back, if Mike Weir was playing one of Masters in an Australian Open, that would have been a feature story weeks out from the event, right? And we've lost all that now. You don't get any lead up stories. Every time when the golf was big in Australia, there'd be lead up stories for weeks prior. They'd be featuring players and talking about players and yada yada yada. But now there's none of that happens. And unless someone's actually at the golf tournament that knows Mike Weir, and as I said, a young kid who just loves his golf, had no idea who he was. But once upon a time, that would have been in the papers, and everyone would have known that Mike Weir was playing.
We're about to be joined by Wade Ormsby, Jack Wilson about to join us. I think the one final thing I wanted to mention on this is that domestic sport in this country has issues across all sports because it's now compared with the entire world. So NBL basketball, A-League soccer, golf all fall into that category that once we thought it was the best when they were playing here. Whereas now we get such greater accessibility to the NBA on your phone or on your tablet or on your TV. Likewise with Premier League soccer or whatever league you like around the world. Golf's the same. We get the European Tour every 4 nights a week if you're lucky enough to have Foxtel, or 4 mornings a week on the US PGA Tour. You get it every week. That wasn't the case 20 years ago when it was a real treat to see them come out here and play, because outside the majors you wouldn't see them on a week-to-week basis. So anyway, it's a discussion we could have forever.
Well,
and we don't have forever.
A new tournament in 2020.
Let's hope
Sorry.
so.
2021 maybe. So stay tuned.
Yes,
really?
We'll see.
Can you drop some early...
We'll see.
Somewhere here in Melbourne?
The Sandbelt Classic or something like that.
Australian Open's coming back too.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
No, new tournament.
I know.
Now this is what's being talked about in Melbourne at the moment, but in Queensland, of course, this week is the Australian PGA Championship. Cameron Smith going for 3 in a row, which would be an extraordinary effort. Adam Scott's playing from an international point of view. Karen Champy's here. It's a good field, as it should be. What do you expect to happen this week?
Well, Cam Smith coming off unbelievable week of golf. However, I think he might be exhausted. I imagine that mentally he might be exhausted, and we might see a letdown. We might not. Who knows? But I think that Adam Scott will be ready to try and get it. He's won it there before. Is it Scotty won it? I think he's won it.
No, I don't think
or did he lose? It's just the playoff he lost, right?
Yeah.
The famous player. He'll be keen to win at home and do well. I think the Royal Pines Resort course will be blowing, as it usually does up there. So someone who can control the golf ball a little bit, Adam, will be, again, spin control a little bit, which I'll refer to later on in my my tips.
Of the week.
But looking forward to watching golf, and good to continue to get some traction on the golf scene in the media a little bit, even though it's not everywhere.
What do you think will happen this week? I know it's hard, Dale. Because
I think it's really good that we've had Australian Open, then Presidents Cup, and the PJ follows.
Yep.
Because it does give just still more momentum for golf.
Absolutely.
So hopefully, just based on the chat before, that we get more golf in the papers and radio, TV. So I'm hoping for that. I'd just really like to see that those three players you mentioned all feature. And I sense Royal Pines, even though it's windy, but I think it could really suit someone who can bomb it. So I think our guest from the US might give this.
I expect to see him feature.
Cameron Champ,
yes.
You think? So who'd be your top 3?
Who? Oh, jeez. Yeah, I think it's a big ask for the guys, particularly Cam. Just he needs to exhale. Whether he can hold his breath for another week and being at home again and having his family and stuff up there. So, but it'll be one of the Aussies. Not sure Cam, but Scotty's dealt with the pressure. So Scotty, Leash even. Leash was pretty scratchy during the week, I think, admittedly. So he'd be keen to kind of resurrect his performances from during the week and win. So Champ, Leash, and I haven't looked at in-depth field, but I don't know how many. What internationals are playing?
Well, Cameron Champ's the main one.
Yeah.
We've got Stuart Sink, who we talked to a couple of weeks ago. He's here. But primarily, I think it's the leading Australians who've got a chance to add a bit of history to their resume. And Yeah, I mean, Cameron Smith didn't play a lot. So I know what you're saying. He didn't play a lot this week. So I wonder whether that might help his cause. That he wasn't like he was someone that played 5 times over the course of the 4 days. So with the history he's got there at the golf course, you'd have to expect him to do pretty well. But the Americans that have come out in the past have done quite well because it is more that resort-type golf course. Like Harold Varner III's always done quite well. And kind
of Floridian style.
Very
Bermuda.
I was going to say very grainy. So a very different type of golf to what we watched this week. You really have to be able to understand the grain, into the grain, uphill, usually down grain, downhill. So the long putting can be tricky. It can be hard to make putts on that.
I'll fill you in on the Wednesday afternoon. After
so he's going out playing the Pro-Am, and then part of Channel 7's coverage is Brendon Goddard.
So just off topic again.
No, we haven't got much time.
So the biggest one for me during the week is Sung Jae Im.
Oh, yeah.
What a start.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
21, and I just saw his score earlier. He was 6 under when he beat Woodland 4-2.
Yeah. The US Open champion, put him to the sword.
And his performances during the week, and he's kind of somewhat of an aloof, but good to talk to, funny, so watch out for him in the future. He's seriously good player. I'm with
Craig. I mean, there's a production line of them that are coming.
Oh yeah,
I reckon there's going to be more of them, and they're going to be winning a lot of events.
But what was cool was the Aussie crowds really attached to them because you represent us this week.
That's right.
You know? So there's that connection now, and at the start of the week, no one knew their names. But CT Pan, for instance, when he made that late run to sort of get back in it, and
nicknamed Peter by the Australian crowd.
Okay,
we're going to stop it now. Otherwise, it'll go 4 hours, and we've still got
I've got
so much today.
So much today.
Wade Ormsby, he'll join us next on the PGA Golf Club.
Everything you want to know about Aussie golf is in one place. PGA.org.au. This is the official site of the PGA of Australia. It's the one website loaded with all the tournament, course and player news. That includes the latest on the ISPS Hander PGA Tour of Australasia. The Find a PGA Pro directory will track down the pros near you. And here's where you can live stream golf's best on PGA TV, watching tournaments live, streaming replays, or watching the latest reports on Aussie golfers around the world. There are even video tips from the pros. So if golf's your game, this is your site. PGA.org.au from the Professional Golfers Association of Australia. Driving Australian golf since 1911.
And welcome back to the PGA Golf Club. Our feature interview this week is Wade Ormsby. Looking forward to catch up with Wade, who's been such a great player now on the European Tour for such a long period of time and so close to winning one of our majors here in Australia. I wonder whether it might be this week when it comes to the PGA Championship up on the Gold Coast. As Wade joins us now. Wade, good morning.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're going well, thank you. Now, you did pretty well in the Australian Open. You've had some great results through the course of the year in Europe. But how primed are you for this week? And I guess the other part of the question is, how tired are you after such a long year?
It's not too bad. My last 6 or 8 weeks haven't been too bad. They've been a little bit stop-start. I took Monday and Tuesday off and been back to practice as usual. So game feels in a pretty good place. If I can get make some putts up there, I won't be too far away.
So how do you assess your form? As I said, you're pretty good at the Australian Open. Do you go in feeling confident that you can do well this week?
Yeah, of course. I think Royal Pines isn't a bad golf course for me. It's probably going to be pretty dry up there just because we're in the middle of a drought. And it's got pretty complex green areas where you've got to just be a bit strategic the way you approach them. So I think the guys that have been there a bit over the last few years are going to have a bit of an advantage, and just got to keep plodding the ball around and take your opportunities where you get them. It's just that type of golf course. It's a typical Masters iron.
Wade, Craig Spence here. I remember back in 2004 we played on the European Tour together. You were up-and-comer and I was a bit over the hill chop. You've been out there for a few years now, mate. You've had 15-odd years or more. How do you feel about your status as a veteran, wily veteran out there now, and where to now for you in terms of, the next steps?
Well, I guess, the fact is I'm 39 and I have been out there a while, but it took me quite a while over there to learn. I got thrown in the deep end, I got my card straight away, so I had to do all my learning out there on tour. So I managed to fall off and stick there a few years in between. So I only feel like probably the last 6 years I've actually kind of got into the guts of my career. So it's probably the truth is I'm closer to the end than the start. However, I reckon my best golf's ahead of me. So the body's still in good shape. I had a bit of a scare with the neck a few years ago. Well, not a scare, but just neural issues with my neck. But all that's under control. So I just want to keep on trying to play my best golf, keep my body strong, keep kind of fast enough, which is a little issue for me. But and try and take it to the young blokes.
So, Wade, Lynch here, mate. Congrats on your recent form. As Craig said, you've been out there a long time, and I suppose if people listen to the podcast, us in here, we have intimate knowledge of your career thus far. Could you give us a bit of a background on your journey? You sort of said that you started, you jumped out and got your tour card straight away, which is quite rare for a young player, and then you're sort of on and off the tours. And would you give us just a bit of a background on what that journey's been like? And I think more importantly, it'd be interesting to know why you sort of feel that your best golf is ahead of you, and why you're sort of playing your best golf, I suppose, over the last couple of years as against when you were younger. What you've sort of learnt through that journey.
Yeah, well, answer your first question. I went to college when I was 18, went over there for 3 years, and after 3 years, I was faced with a decision whether to finish my degree or go and have a crack at playing golf at 21 years of age. So I, with the family, we decided that I'll have a go and work my bum off, and I did that, got my card in Oz, and then I was just trying to survive over here, and then I did a year where I played a few Monday qualifiers in the US and bought a round the world ticket because that was the cheapest thing to do. I went to European Q School, and all of a sudden I won stage one and third or fourth, I think, in stage two, and second in finals, and all of a sudden I was on the European Tour, and it was a bit of a shock to me, but the bottom line is you don't fluke those things. I played good golf there for 3 months, and a bit of belief goes along with that, and I kept my card the first 2 years on tour. And then I went through a bit of a struggle there, kind of 8, 9, 10 through that era. But I still managed to retain status on tours, even though it wasn't great status, but it still allows you to play 4-round golf, and didn't know what I was doing probably in a lot of aspects of my game, but I kept on working hard and fighting and trying to turn over stones, trying to find what the next, where I could try and play some good golf. So to ask your second question, why am I playing my best golf now? I've had a lot of stability in my team. I've had Richard, my caddy, on my bag for the last 7 years. He's almost more than a caddy for me. He's a mentor that we chat a lot about my game. So that's definitely been a big factor of it. I think you just mature out there. You get a lot more comfortable in your life off the golf course and all that. And I've had a few things straighten out there. So, and your belief mechanism goes up. You get in the hunt a lot more. I was never in the hunt my first 3 or 4 years on tour, and I had to, like I said earlier, had to do a lot of learning out there on the road, and had to learn how to win and throw golf tournaments and get in the hunt and try and win golf tournaments. So I'm kind of doing that in the end of my career, and a lot of guys do that in amateur golf. So I've had to do it on the world stage, unfortunately.
So upon reflection, Orms, what was holding you back early on in your career when you're on the European Tour?
Well, I guess it's some mental stuff for sure, but a lot of people could say I'm a fighter, but there's obviously doubts in there somewhere. I think mechanically, I've never been a great ball striker, so I've always tried to not find the answer there. I've always tried to improve that. I know I'm never going to be an Adam Scott, but I can definitely become a competent ball striker, and then use the head and the short game and play to your limitations or your abilities, and to try and get the job done, because we all play the game a little bit different, and I think I've just learned how to do that a bit better.
Orms, you mentioned Adam Scott, and it's probably not the best bloke to be very, very close friends with, because he's got probably arguably one of the best actions the last 20-odd years, and in some ways it was probably good, but in some ways did you find yourself competing with the fact, he's world class and does it so easily, and you had to really work and almost, as you said earlier, turn over every stone you could?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think Scotty always, as we know, even as a junior, he had an amazing ability to hit the golf ball, and I had an amazing ability not to hit the golf course. So you just, but at the end of the day, you got to punch out a number, you know. And if you can, however you do that, you do that. But yeah, you do find yourself comparing yourself early on, but the comparisons changed pretty quickly in his early career. But I grew up with Matty Jones too, and Aaron Baddeley, even though the year behind us, he was kind of playing ahead of his age group type thing. So everyone has their deficiencies, everyone has their strengths, and the sooner you can probably understand that, and some of them would kill for my short game, my ability to scramble or grind or whatever, you know, and you just got to accept that a little bit and just keep going to work on the bit you struggle with, and I think I've just got better at doing that.
The European Tour, we often see a lot of the Australians go or try and gravitate towards the PGA Tour. Your love for Europe, and has it sort of, you kind of touched on this before, did it find you or did you find it?
Going back to that start, what I said there,
yeah.
I bought around the world ticket because it was the cheapest option. So, and there was a European Tour entry form sitting on the desk at the Royal Adelaide Pro Shop, and I just grabbed it and looked at it and thought, oh, those dates could work with a little 8-week Monday qualifiers on Nationwide back then, and right. I did that, and then I qualified one at Chart Hills there where a bunch of Aussies went, and all of a sudden I start thinking about going to the European Tour. So yeah, I did kind of a land there, and it was a bit of a chance that I finished playing in Europe, but and then I was married to a Swedish girl, and my son Oscar still lives in Europe, so for me to go to America just really wouldn't make sense, as much as I'd love to play a handful of times that side of the pond every year, but there's family reasons and personal reasons where Europe fits me perfectly.
And we had Lucas Herbert come in about a month ago and talk about his challenges, unexpected challenges on the European Tour of loneliness and it just being tough, the grind week in, week out, having to go from country to country. How have you managed to do that as successfully as you have been and sustain it over such a long period?
Yeah, well, I was pretty lucky. Marcus Fraser got his card by winning 3 times on the Challenge Tour about 5 months before I got my card, or even 3 months before. So we were walking the same path together, so we roamed a lot together. As we all know, Fraser's a great guy. There's no crap there. We both get on well. He's a country lad, so it was perfect roommates straight off the bat. So, and then I think the biggest thing that we had, especially Fraser and I, we had Peter O'Malley, Jared Mosley, Peter Fowler, and I'm probably missing a couple more in there, Stephen Scarhill. All these guys were right there, and Richard Green. So we had these guys that almost like mentors, especially Peter O'Malley, that they would always send us in the right direction, stay here, fly from here, or do whatever. And just someone to go to dinner with and somewhere decent to go to dinner. So it was kind of having that kind of mentor out there in our first 2 or 3 years was huge for us. And I'm trying to do the same things for Scriv and some of these guys that are coming through now.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And before we let you go, and we appreciate your time on the program today, getting that elusive big win, you've got so close before. What would it mean to you to win a PGA as opposed to, say, winning that Hong Kong Open a couple of years ago, which was kind of a bit of a life changer for you, but to win at home, a big event? Yeah,
obviously, any Australian playing home, you want to get one of those big ones under your belt, either Aussie Open or PGA or Masters when it was about. So Australian PGA of Australia is something pretty close to the family's heart, so that one would be pretty special. It still grinds on me, that 6 or 7 footer I jacked there a few years ago to miss that one against Scotty and Chalmers, but anyway, that's behind me. We'll get up there this week.
Sure.
Doesn't sound like it's behind you.
Still pisses me off. Luckily, it's on the old green. That green's already torn up, so I won't have those memories anymore.
What I remember about that was Adam Scott had the same putt 4 times in a row, and he spent 5 minutes reading it 4 times in a row and missed it every time.
I was already halfway to the airport. I didn't see that one.
Oh, goodness.
Wade, thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it, and good luck this week.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for the chat.
Wade Ormsby joining us there, and he does bring back memories of that playoff that went for about 2 hours. And I know I got in all sorts of trouble because I was at a friend's house for a barbecue. And I said, "I'll just see this hole, and I'll come back out."
I know.
And was inside for about 2.5 hours, I think, watching the most extraordinary playoff where I must confess, Wade's off the phone now. I'd backed Adam Scott, and I saw Wade miss that putt, and then just kept yelling at the television at Adams. How can he not get this in? And then Greg Chalmers just came from nowhere. It was an amazing playoff.
It was. Lynchy and I talk a bit about the simplicity of putting and how I think what was evident in that was how much time Scotty spent. He was really into the aim point at that point. Someone was speaking recently about how Ben Crenshaw never gets down on the ground. He just walks around. And it's so true. The great putters do the least amount of analysing, it seems like. Other than maybe Phil Mickelson's. He's about the only one.
Yeah, but that's Phil, though.
That is Phil. That is Phil. He's about the only one. But Lynchy, the great putters, and you've worked with Faxon and Bads there, they don't overthink it, but how do they do it? What are they drawing
Great question, and two of the best putters of all time.
Yes.
You've been linked to them.
Yeah, well, I've been sort of lucky. I coached Greg Chalmers as well.
Yeah, well,
right.
You know, and also guy Arjun Atwell. Now, Arjun was number one putting on web.com his first year out, and PGA Tour his first year.
Oh, wow.
And Arjun would set the putter face up. The putter face would be probably about 7 or 8 degrees closed at address, and then just push the ball in.
Right.
So you're working, he says you struggle with this, but so they just have, it's I guess it's, as you talk, it's actually the art of the game, right? And I use it this one too, is that we've all played, right? When you're standing on the side of a green and someone you're playing with rolls a putt, right? Now you'll know
yes,
such a high percentage of time whether that ball is in, whether it's high, whether it's low.
I do it on tally.
Which you can do it on TV.
Putting, and go, no, that's no good.
Yep.
Correct,
Oh, that's a chance.
So what happens is your instinct dials in, right? And the great putters learn how to use their instinct to read the greens. So someone like, and Jeff's a great putter, right? And he led putting at some point on PGA Tour a few times. And guys like Erin and Jeff don't make any conscious read at all. They don't pick a point or whatever. So if you look at Aaron's routine, it's purely done on instinct. So he doesn't, no conscious lining up or conscious read. It's just a sense and feel of where the ball's going. And Snedeker used to talk about, on a breaking putt, I just put it out there somewhere.
Yep.
You know, so it's to putt with your instinct and not putt with that conscious brain. I mean, you look at Scott, you go for that. I thought it was really that playoff where Scotty would go through the whole aim point and he'd stand there. And as soon as the putt missed, the first thing he did was he'd step back and look at it. Thinking, well, when it misses, you're not standing there putting your fingers up and standing there trying to get it with your feet. You're actually looking at what the ball should have done. You know,
right.
So it's being able to establish routines that you actually can trust your instinct. You know, it's almost like not trying, if that makes sense. I've heard Aaron, say to himself on the course, stop trying, just let the thing flow and just let it go. You know.
So the obvious question for me on that is, then how do you coach or do you not coach, say, Aaron, when it comes to his putting? If he's all feel, you just let him go, you'll worry about the swing?
All the way through. So Aaron was, but when he was a kid, his goal was to be the best putter in the world. So you worked on the mechanics. So his that whole stroke is all, forearms on plane. It's where his body and shoulders are relative to the plane of the putt. So there's no rocking backwards and forwards. And he's got his drill, he's got his technique that he goes. So he's got pure technique and great feel. So that ball rolls off the putter just superbly. And the one thing Craig and I have discussed this too, and is you look at the great putters, it's like the ball morphs off the putter face. It's like an image that the ball comes off the putter at the same speed the putter's going through. It has this sort of morphing image, and that's what the great putters do. So he has great roll, great feel. But then that routine that Aaron uses, that's something that I got him doing when he was probably 14, I would say. And it was really based on just research that was done. It says, well, that the more the less conscious thought you have, because of anyone that struggle with putting, we'll put a hand up, all right, is all those stupid things that come in your head where your conscious brain starts trying to take over. So the routine for him was just purely, okay, walk around the green, right? Make no conscious decision on the line. Just let your instinct dial into what it is. If you watch his routine, he gets back behind the ball. A couple of practices. And all he's doing at that point, he's looking at the ball in the hole and just engaging, right? And when he walks in, his focus is purely on the ball now. He's not even looking at the hole, right? And when he sets up, he's just letting his instinct line him up, right? And then he takes one look, where he looks at the hole, and then he feeds his eyes back. And as soon as his eyes hit that golf ball, that's his trigger, right? And he does that every time. And he would practice. Get him practicing actually putting, looking at the hole, right? So your mind now is like every other sport you play. If you're playing shooting hoops or whatever you're doing, right? He'd look at the hole, he'd putt swing at the hole, and then run the eyes back, and he'd run the eyes back, and again, as soon as his eyes would hit the ball, that would be the trigger, and that does that every single time. So routine's the same, the speed of it's the same, and then practice is the same.
So why do we have such a hard time convincing people this is the way to go? And because not many people buy into that approach, do they? Most people want to do things they can consciously control or see, if you like. But explaining to someone you've got to do less and almost feel it with your, there's that centering technique psychologists talk about, and I've felt that where you can lock onto the target almost like it feels a little bit like locking onto a missile a bit.
Yeah.
You lock onto the target, and it wouldn't matter where you looked, you know where the target is. I think that's what you're talking about. With
yeah, well, again, the thing with it, there are a number of drills you can do. I mean, the books you used to get with Bob Rotella.
Yeah.
And he has some great drills, and he has that drill, it's the look and shoot, where you get, two holes that are maybe 15, 20 feet apart on the putting green. And one player stands at one hole, and the other player stands the other hole. And all they do, they've got to look up and hit the putt. So you're not to think, you just look and shoot. You just keep looking up, hitting it. And as soon as you hole it, then you rotate around and keep doing it. Maybe play to 10 or play to 20. So that becomes just purely instinctive and reactive. But the challenge is that golf does give us way too much time to think about it. I mean, BJ over there, you've got the guys that, in footy where they kick on the run and the great shots for goal, right? But you get them a set shot and they just really struggle because now they've got too much time to actually analyse and think about what they're doing. So that's the challenge with golf, no question, and putting more so than anything because the thing's only moving such a short distance.
Yes.
You get the opportunity of seeing the putter and you get to control the putter, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge to change all that.
Yeah.
But it is doable, and you can if kids do it at a younger age and understand it. Where Aaron was so dedicated to and believe what he was told at that age. If he believed it, he would buy in 100%. So you just got to keep training your mind and training your way of actually doing it.
I love interviewing golfers and golf coaches about golf because selfishly I try and make myself better by the questions I ask. You just listen to all the information. And I remember talking to Aaron about his putting, and he talked about, I asked him how he reads his putts, and it's very similar to what you're saying, obviously. But he'd talk about visualising where the ball will actually drop into the hole. So whether it be 7:30, whether it be 4 o'clock or whatever else. And it's that feel thing. And then he would take it back to his... He says exactly what you're saying. And it does help. I mean, for me, I'm just an average golfer, but to actually have that information, it helped not only with my read, but also with my pace of putt.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was one of the best bits of advice I ever received. It was during a radio interview.
And I think too that all of us that have played golf have walked up to a putt and could see it going in.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We've all done that. Well, I've got this.
Yep.
I can sense it and feel this going in. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to continually recreate that moment.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And most of us as golfers, we've stood over a putt and thinking, "Oh God, don't miss that bloody thing. I can feel I'm going to hook this thing. I'm going to miss it left. Blah blah blah." We've all done that.
Yeah.
So which is the better? So it's a matter then of being able to get yourself conditioned to actually go about it in the right manner.
I think that's one of the best feelings in golf when you stand up to a putt and you just see and feel the line and you're like, I've got it.
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. So how much of that then, BJ, is you're reading it well, but also you're having confidence in your stroke?
I don't actually know. That's
because I think a lot of it is, well, I know how to hit this putt because I read the line. So your stroke is a lot more authoritative potentially.
Well, it just matches. It's the feel.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the feel. It's like the feel of a
if
great
we
bunker
could
shot, or
recreate that, or if we knew how to recreate that, then geez.
Yeah. Well, the best putters do it, and because they have the right practice habits and they understand that component of it, and that's what they do, and they feel that as we do occasionally. They do that a lot of times. I mean, Brad Faxon, the drills he works on, like in terms of he would put the 3 balls down. He never hits the same putt twice, if that makes sense. So he says there is no line, because there's a line if I'm going to hit it gently, there's a line if I'm going to hit it medium, there's another line if I'm going to hit it firm. So there is no line. It's just what he feels and senses at the time. So he could have the same putt in a tournament. One it might break, a hole because he's just going to dribble it in, and the next time he sees the putt and feels it, when he feels it, he says, I want to feel this in firm, and he feels it in firm. So
is it a matter of Lynchy, about finding what, like golf generally is, finding what works for you? Because this may not work for everyone, and you asked the question about, well, why can't everyone kind of do this? Or
I think you're right. There is that element for sure. It's got what works for you, but you've got to understand you, if that makes sense. And you're right in terms of the exercise and drills you can do to create that moment and get into that moment will vary between players. I mean, I like watching Snedeker putt. He's just genius, right? And how he describes it, and how he feels it would be different than how Aaron would when he's putting his best. And I think Greg Chalmers, for example. Now, Greg was interesting because he's someone, again, you watch his routines, you watch that roll of the ball, it's just beautiful, right? But he is very mechanically minded when he's practicing his putting. I mean, very mechanically minded. He's constantly working on his mechanics. So that's that individual element of it, And Jeff, when he's in the right space, right, how great he putts and feels and the whole thing. But for Jeff, he couldn't go about his practice like Greg Chalmers does, because there's too much mechanics going on for him. So you're right. There is that individualism that you've got to understand yourself and then work within that skill set.
Oh, how good's this? I love it. I tell you what, your tip later on, Craig's got to be bloody good.
I feel like we've already covered off on that.
I was going to be talking about something completely else, different. And that's just completely captivated me. So good luck later on.
I'm nervous.
We're going to take a break. Jack Wilson will join us after the break, and don't forget Craig's world famous tip still to come as well. It's the PGA Golf Club.
Future Golf gets you playing at amazing courses. Future Golf gets you an official golf handicap. Future Golf is the future of golf. It makes you part of Australia's greatest golf community, playing free rounds at partner courses, enjoying lessons, awesome golf events, mini golf and X-Golf. Whether you're a beginner or a golf addict, Future Golf lets you get into the game your way, all from as little as $24.95 a month. And because you're listening to this show, the PGA Golf Club, you'll save 10% on your membership. Just enter the code PGA Podcast as one word when you register. Got that code? PGA Podcast. Head to futuregolf.com.au/join. Future Golf. Play your way.
And welcome back to the PGA Golf Club. It's time to catch up with Jack Wilson. Now, Jack here is one of the characters on tour, and he's known for his very talented golf, but also his crazy hair and his crazy caddy, to be honest. But it's all about to change this week as part of the PGA up on the Gold Coast, and Jack's going to explain exactly what's happening. Jack, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, boys.
What's happening?
Yeah, mate. So it's going to be a big change for me, but for a fantastic cause. Yellow Day, December 20, Friday of the Australian PGA this week. In conjunction with all the other great activities and initiatives for Yellow Day and in memory of Jared. I'm going to be shaving the dreadlocks that have probably become my identity for the last 4 or 5 years for challenge supporting kids with cancer, and more specifically to help generate funds to build custom-built wigs for kids that lose their hair during chemo and cancer treatment. So fantastic cause and something that it's very special to have this opportunity from the platform that through me and the way I look and the addition of my best mate, Riz, on the bag, we've created a platform to now use that to do something pretty special and support such a fantastic cause.
So how is it going, mate? I know there's a target in mind, and I guess everyone wants to know if you don't reach that target, are the locks still coming off?
Yeah, I really think with the amount of support we've received through social media and even being out at President's Cup this week, the amount of people that came up and knew that I was shaving my hair, I'm confident we're going to reach the target of $20,000. It was I sort of threw the idea up to Brioni a couple of months ago, and she's really been the brains trust behind it all and formed it into what is now known as the dreaded shave. So look, I'm confident we're going to get to the 20K if we all.
Where are we at the minute?
I've got to speak to Brioni this morning. So last week we were at about 4,000, which is almost enough to build one wig for kids going through treatment. So we want to be able to get that to at least 5, and hopefully this week and even today, we can help get that ball rolling a little more and get to the 20K. And look, if we exceed that, then
I was going to ask that if you succeed that, then is there any conversation of Riz getting involved in the?
Riz he's going to try and keep his look, I think, for maybe another opportunity down the track. He's feeling the pressure. But I think my beard will be the next step after that. And he's one known to succumb to peer pressure. So I think when it comes to the shave, he might be nowhere to be seen.
All right. So for those that want to get involved and help you out, how do they go about it?
Yeah. So if you head over to any of Challenge Cancer's Instagram or Luke the Duck, but more importantly, www.challenge.org.au/donation. Click the dreaded shave. We'd love everyone's support. As I said, it's for a fantastic cause. The value of a wig for a child going through such a terrible time is priceless, and it's often something that isn't able to be affordable, with all the treatment costs that are associated with such a terrible time in a child's life and a family's life. So to be able to give a child that choice back to look the way they want to look, it's a pretty special thing. And I have that choice to look the way I want to look. And if I can share that and give that back to some kids that are going through such a tough time, then that'd be fantastic. And we can't do it without everyone's support. So.
No,
really
fantastic, Jack. And before we let you go, just on your own golf, you've someone that has competed and contended in PGA Championships in the past. How's the form going into this week?
Yeah, look, it's been quite good. It's a tough thing to really get a gauge on in Australia when we get to this time of year, because this is where we have the opportunity probably to make all our money for the year. And the last two events at New South Wales Open, Australian Open, and then Australian PGA this week being 3 of our biggest events on the schedule. Everything comes down to these sort of 3 weeks, and I've been pretty close. I got a bit sick at New South Wales Open, but was feeling quite good, missed the cut by a couple, and played quite good Australian Open other than maybe one mistake and a few missed putts, and missed the cut by, I think I missed it by 3 there, and it was pretty bunched and tight. So I feel like the game's very close and not much needs to happen. So I do like Royal Pines and have played well up there before, and it's going to be good to be back in some warm weather. Melbourne's really dished up some classic summer weather this week at less than 20 degrees most days.
Perfect weather for golf. What are you talking about?
The problem is it's 39 on Wednesday and 41 on Friday. So,
for those that don't
it's
know,
about 6 today, which is just very typical of Melbourne.
For those that don't know, Jack now lives in Noosa, the Sunshine Coast, so he's very
a trader.
Very much like anti-Melbourne weather now. And
just a smart Victoria.
And just finally, Jack, you're at the President's Cup. We've been talking about this on the show today, just about everyone's reflections of it, being there and amongst it all. What was the one takeout that you had that stands out?
Oh, one takeout's pretty tough.
Yeah, that's true.
Just the spectacle of the event that the PGA Tour created and the President's Cup team created was incredible through the infrastructure, but through the atmosphere. I've never seen that at a golf event before. I think it showcases the potential we have in this sport with a different format to bring in a crowd and a demographic that's never been there before. And I think that was showcased with the team atmosphere and format this week. I think it was something very special. And Riz and I were very lucky to get pretty intimate with the crowd in the way of the fanatics on Thursday and be right out and amongst the fans for most of the week. And it was pretty special to see what was created at a golf tournament. And I think it was just something very special and probably the best sporting event we'll see for 2019. It's going to be hard to argue that in Australia, but definitely I don't think there's been a golf event bigger than this in Australia. It was very special to be a part of, and I'm glad I witnessed it.
No, I agree. I think that's very hard to argue. Jack, thanks very much for joining us. Good luck this week on the golf course and also off the golf course, and we'll see how much money can be raised.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, dig deep, www.challenge.org.au/donation, and let's get behind it. It's going to be very interesting when I play 2 rounds with dreadlocks and then 2 rounds completely bald. It's going to be a little adjustment, but as I said, fantastic cause, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, Jack.
RSN Podcast, all your favourite RSN shows and loads of new programs.
You can listen or download wherever, whenever.
And now we're on iHeartRadio, the world's #1 radio and podcast app.
RSN Podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts and at rsn.net.au. And now on iHeartRadio. It's free at your app store or head to iHeart.com.
Okay, this has been a marathon edition of the PGA Golf Club, but there's so much to talk about, so I don't feel too bad about doing it a bit longer this week, particularly with our special co-host, Craig Spence, who now is your time for your tip of the week, and I'm very much looking forward to this because I think I need some help in this area.
Well, I'm always nervous when the super coach
That's
is in
exactly
the studio
right.
because he's going to say, that's BS, you idiot. But I've got to, look... I noticed this week, I really raved about Royal Melbourne and how it played, and it was clear that unless you could control the ball against the slope a little bit, against the wind a little bit, you had no chance. And now that was at the absolute pointy end. But I'll give you an example at the lower end. You got a strong left-to-right wind, trees hard up against the left side of the tee box, out of bounds fence right, what are you going to do?
I'll be hitting the ball out of bounds.
And you're a slicer. What are you going to do? So unless you have some ability to move the ball, hold the ball against a wind, you really are setting yourself up at times to fail. And a lot of people think consistency is hitting the same shot every time. And that's pretty rare in golf to find someone that hits the same golf shot every time. You actually need to be able to hit a variability to your ball to some degree. So... the 4 things you need in golf are when you're on a strong left-right wind, you need to be able to hold it against it to some degree. Obviously, vice versa. Hard right to left, you need to be able to hold it somewhat against it. Into a strong wind, you need to be able to keep it down some degree. And downwind, especially on a par 5, you want to be able to ride the wind a little bit, Adam. Does that make sense?
Yep, that does.
Do you have all those 4 in your bag?
No.
You got any of them?
No. Oh, no. Well, but I think it's a good point because, you know, I just try and hit the ball straight.
Yes, everyone tries to hit it straight.
No, but as in, I just try and hit the ball straight at the flag, and I know I'm not meant to do that, but I understand the rationale, but particularly even off the tee, if you've got dog legs and things like that, being able to shape the ball left to right as opposed to purposely hitting a slice.
Well, even there might be some really, really bad bunkers to the right-hand side. And being able to hit the ball well to the left with a certain type of shot that just eliminates risk factor to some degree. It gives you a lot more space to use on the golf course.
But even this week, the American players were commenting on Tiger's ability to move the ball in the air both ways, that they were just overwhelmed by what he was doing to shape the ball around the golf course, which I thought was an interesting point coming from fellow professionals.
Absolutely. So, but seeing it's the last one of the year, I wanted to make something that would be, you know,
a real sort of grandstand finish.
A grandstand finish. And really, you've improved, what would we say, 5 shots
minimum,
this series?
Minimum.
So this will take you probably to low scratch +1 sort of numbers.
Yep.
All right, first of all, now, and I'm going to get your opinion on this, Lynch, because there's different thoughts on how to move the ball, all right? So, but wind coming across you from the left, all right? And you're a right-handed golfer. So you need to somehow hold the ball against it because it's quite strong. And I'm going to say this is when you're using a 6-iron, right? So one thing you can do is you can aim your feet and your shoulders slightly to the right, maybe 5 degrees, 10, 15 metres to the right of the actual target. But what you do is you turn the club face more to the left. So it's actually aiming at the flag stick. So essentially what you're doing is you're trying to swing the club a little bit along your feet, but have the face pointing more to the left. So what happens is a bit like kicking a soccer ball, right?
Yep.
Is you will create a ball that will actually pull slightly off the face and then hold up against that left or right wind. Now, the stronger the wind, the more you can turn the face and start the ball more into it. You know, you never ever, if the wind's quite strong, you never want to sort of aim to the right and try and bring it back against it. You'd better off to. So that's tip number one, is to aim the feet and the shoulders a little bit right and turn the face a little bit left. Or more towards the target, yep. That's as basic as I can make it. Wind coming across from the right, so now you're going to do the opposite. You're going to aim your feet and your shoulders a little bit left, so maybe to the left bunker of the green, and you're going to point your face more to the target line. Now, when we do this with a fade and a draw, if you're doing it for the fade, you open the face a little bit, you're actually going to create a bit more loft, so you actually have to add a club or two to that one. So if I'm going to do that with a 6-iron distance, I might do it with a 4-iron. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If I'm closing the face on the draw shot, I might take one club less because I'm closing it, therefore de-lofting it a little bit. All right. Now, the other two would be when the wind is strong in your face, right into the... So remember we did the stinger shot? I think Lynchy was in here. That he reckoned that was one of the greatest tips he's ever heard.
It's the best thing
on radio.
It's the best thing I've had. But see, I don't do it for wind purposes. I do it from getting under trees.
He'd never heard of it before. All right, so like a stinger, narrow stance, quite a narrow stance, because we want our spine to be quite straight in terms of from looking from front on. We don't want to have a lot of tilt, shoulders semi-level. So narrow stance, nice straight spine. Ball can be a little bit back, but the better the player you are, the more forward you want to have it. A lot of players like to have it a little bit back because it helps de-loft the club a little bit more. But as we've said, that can get it steeper. Shallow swing, so shorten up the swing a little bit and try to sweep the ball off the ground almost, yeah? Take an extra couple of clubs and hit it softer. And you want to have your hands a little bit forward at setup and a little bit forward at impact. Easier said than done for a lot of people. But if you follow those tips perfectly, that will work. Anything else you'd add to that one, Lynchy?
Keep going, Spike.
All right.
Great job.
Shivers.
Loving it.
Wind behind you. All right. Wide stance. Tilt the shoulders. So you want to have your lead shoulder or your left shoulder for a right-hander should be higher than your back shoulder. So you're going to have a bit of an angle in your shoulders, ball well forward. If it's a driver, tee it up high. If it's a 6-iron, just have it forward in the stance. You want to feel as though you hit up, or catch the ball fairly clean, as if you're just picking it off the ground. And you want to follow through with your hands high, if you can. So it gets a feeling as though you're picking it off the ground and lifting the ball in the air. It'll be easier to hit this shot with a slight fade because you can aim a little left, open the face, and kind of hit up on it. Not for everyone. These are very general tips, but they're things that might help some of our listeners out there start to work on a little bit of shot shaping.
You happy with all that?
That was very good. And I think for golfers practicing, it's a really good exercise to try and start to learn how to turn the ball and spin it, to try and put some spin on the ball. And I think when Craig did that stinger shot we talked about, was it to actually, for people where this is brand new, just to do it with short swings.
Yeah.
And even do it with short swings. And if you, again, depending on your level, even just stick the ball on a tee with an iron, right? Just because you get more of a feel of particularly if you're trying to hook the ball, you get more of a feel of a top spinning type sensation, and just do it with a length swing that you can really just sense the face. So that the slower the club's moving, the easier it is to actually feel it, and then just work your way up. And as you get the feel for it, then just keep going. Yeah,
that's added great value to what was already great content, right? But I think just quickly,
desperate to get out here
for the high shot. That's a great point. For a high shot, you should start off a tee and lower the tee each and every shot, and then try one off the ground. And if you flub it, start again. You know. Sorry, BJ.
No, whilst we're talking about tees and hitting balls off tees, I noticed Tiger during the week that, albeit on par 3s, and it was on some par 4s as well, but he was teeing the ball, but he actually wasn't taking a divot. And we're talking about one of the best ball strikers in the world. So I'm saying that can't be just by accident. He's picking the ball off the tee. So the physics behind it would be, was there less spin on the golf ball?
No, but basically
when he was picking off the tee,
it actually just naturally shallows out the downswing.
Yep.
You know, and the bad one is when you get too steep on it.
Yep.
And Jeff always would start his practice sessions hitting irons off quite a high tee. Like he would tee it up higher than a 3 wood, just for that very reason. Just naturally start to shallow out his swing and get his feel from it. And that's how he'd start his session, then put it back down on the ground.
So that's on. I was watching Tiger. I was out there Tuesday, but then the television is like, that's deliberate. He's not. And some people would probably say, oh, he caught it a bit thin, but no, we're talking about one of the best ball strikers ever.
Yeah,
and this is deliberate what he's doing.
And a lot of people ask me, should I tee it up on a par 3? And I think absolutely, because you might be playing in slightly damp conditions. So when you can take an element of risk out of it, you're playing
especially
out of it.
High handicappers, you should tee up. There's
absolutely
every opportunity.
Make the ball sit as perfectly as you can, and if you can catch the ball before turf, without turf even better, then you're going to get more distance control. So on a par 3, absolutely tee it up. Not too high, but just tee it up so the ball sort of matches the sweet spot of the club head when it's sitting on the ground.
Well, thank you for not only today, and I'm being serious now, for the entire series. We've done 12 of these episodes now, and you've been part of all 12. Really appreciate your involvement in the PGA Golf Club, and I look forward to continuing these chats next year. It's been absolutely fantastic.
I've had a great time, BJ. Good to do it with you for three months now, and
it's been great.
I've had a great time.
And Dale, thanks. You've been in 3 or 4 times throughout this first series, and always feel I leave the studio with more information, which is
free golf lessons.
Absolutely,
who's not happy?
But it's free golf lessons for me. But it's free golf lessons to everyone that's listened. So really appreciate you coming.
Pleasure, enjoy it.
And obviously, BJ, for your involvement, it's been a lot of fun. As I said, we've done 12 episodes. There's been literally thousands and thousands and thousands of listens of the podcast through this first series, which means that we will be back doing it again next year.
Series 2, 2020.
Absolutely. And I'm already looking forward to it. So thank you for listening. And, we'll catch you again soon. Enjoy the golf.